Hey there. Hello. How do you do? My name is Harry Wetzel. Thanks for coming. It's the 80s, darling. Yes, it is. It is November 28th, 1983. It is a gloomy Monday, and I almost just got killed by a speeding car coming blazing down 3rd Avenue at 86th Street. And I leapt for my life as the car just missed me. And when I leapt, I saw my life flash before my eyes. I saw the whole thing in a series of images, in a series of flashes, like a whole story laid out before me in the fraction of a second. I saw the whole series of images. And in the course of those series of images, it is now 1975. It's the 70s, baby. Yes, it is 1975 November. And we are working on building the set for Look Homeward Angel at Dearborn High, a Dearborn High production, a play by Ketty Frings from the novel by Thomas Wolfe. It's a beautiful play. And we're working on the set, and I'm talking to the boss. And he says, "Why didn't you audition for this show?" And I said, I was very sheepish. I said, "I don't know. I didn't know anybody. I felt ashamed to go in there without being invited or something. I don't know. I didn't know. I don't know." And he said, "Well, you're auditioning for the next one. I'll tell you that." Aha. The vampire had been invited. The vampire had been preemptively invited to the next auditions, which would be months down the road next spring. But that was my in. Yes, it was very good news. All right, now it's November 13th, 1975, and it is opening night of Look Homeward Angel. Yes, and I am on the performance crew, and I'm so excited because just the energy of a performance, even if you're backstage, the energy is electric. So we had a couple of scene shifts. It's a long play. There are 2 intermissions, and we had a couple of scene shifts. And I actually had my first performance credit in a program. I was listed in the program as an anonymous offstage whistler. Yes, because at one point in the script, it calls for someone in the background to be whistling a tune off in the distance. So rather than have that be a recorded sound cue, we just decided to have a live person do it live. And that was me because I had a pretty good whistle in those days. Yes. So I walked from one side of the stage to the other from behind the set and whistled After the Ball is Over, which is an old timey song for an old timey play. Yes. All right. Now, Look Homeward Angel was a crashing success. And now it's the following year. Now it's 1976. Yes. It's March or so. And a group of us thespians and the boss. Oh, and the boss, as it turns out, he had a taste for teens. Oh, go on. What young teacher doesn't? Anyhow, the group of bunch of thespians all trundled together in 2 cars and caravanned out to Ann Arbor, Michigan to watch Long Day's Journey into Night by Eugene O'Neill at the Power Center. Oh, yes, a huge, beautiful performance venue. And we were going to see it with Jason Robards, Hollywood movie star, and with Zoe Caldwell, Broadway star, and with Michael Moriarty, television star. Oh, we were all thrilled with thespian enthusiasm to see famous people do Eugene O'Neill. So we get to the theater, we get to the Power Center, and we get to our seats up there in the balcony. We're in the 4th row of the balcony. They're pretty nice seats, and you can look down there. You get a bird's eye view of the set where there's no curtain, so the set is visible. It's a house and living room and porch, and so it is. It's a long day's journey. It's 3 acts and 2 intermissions. And at the first intermission, I'm sitting there where I'm watching the show next to my beautiful, hilarious friend Kathleen, and she says, I was looking at the main floor down there, and in row 3 there are a couple of vacant seats. Seats 5 and 6 in row 3 are unoccupied, she said. She said, we should go occupy those seats. And I'm like, what are you, crazy? She said, nothing crazy about it. We'll go down there, simple as can be, and act like we belong here. That's all we have to do. And I'm like, I'm not so sure. She said, this isn't people who are late. We're not taking anybody's seats. They're not coming. So we should just go and sit in those seats so we can see what's going on. And I'm like, she says, well, I'm going. You coming? And I'm like, whoa, okay. And so So we walk downstairs, we go down to the main floor, and we walk down the aisle, closer and closer and closer to the set. It's looming up on us. And there in row 3, we count off to seats 5 and 6, and we have a seat. And these seats are beautiful. Yes. So we watch the rest of the show, Act 2 and Act 3, from these magnificent seats. Yes. And after the show, we go over to the Brown Jug, a favorite place in Ann Arbor, a legendary pizza joint and bar. And we went over to the Brown Jug in Ann Arbor, and we sat there in the back. We had a nice table, and we all sat there. And Kathleen and I are in the very back, up against the wall, and you can see the whole room, and you can see the front door to the Brown Jug right up there. All right, so we order pizza and French fries, and we're sitting around, and the thespians are kind of jealous that we had these great seats. And Kathleen said, "Listen, there were other vacant seats. You could have gone down. All you had to do was count and then take those seats. You had just as open an opportunity to sit in some great seats as we did. So you could have done it." And the pizza and the French fries come, and we're eating that, and we're talking about how great the show was, how amazing the acting was. This Zoe Caldwell was intense and brilliant, just amazing. And Michael Moriarty, he was really good. He was very quiet. Yes, he was very quiet. You had to strain a little bit, I will admit, but that low key acting was brilliant. And then Jason Robards, what a titan, what a performance! He was just amazing, and you could just see the power that he had throughout. And as we're talking about how brilliant Jason Robards is, who should walk into the Brown Jug but Jason Robards himself? And Kathleen and I are choking on our pizza crusts, and we're like, and the hostess takes Jason Robards and his 5 friends and sits them right there at the front table of the Brown Jug. And Kathleen's like, "Oh, we have to go talk to him." And I'm like, "What are you, crazy?" She says, "Nothing crazy about it. We'll go right up there. We'll say hello. We saw the show. We think you're wonderful. And we just wanted to say hello." And we duck out. We don't even ask for an autograph. We just say hello. We're in and out. Hello and goodbye. It'll be fantastic. And I'm like, "I'm not so sure." She turned to the rest of the table. "Anybody?" And the thespians. "Anybody want to come up with me?" And everybody's like, "No." She says, "Well, look up there. He's sitting there with his friends. Nobody's even bothering him." And I said, "Oh, so only we will be bothering him." She says, "No, you know what I mean." I said, "Yes, and you know what I mean." She says, "Well, I'm going. You coming?" And she stood up, and I'm like, last time she said that, it worked out. So, okay, wait for me. So we work our way through the restaurant. She said, "Listen, it'll be easy, short and sweet, in and out. We'll say our business and get out. And the time is now. Mr. Robards." And we were right up on him. And he looks up, and there's this beautiful, smiling high school girl smiling at Jason Robards. So he's like, of course he's delighted. And he says, "Yes." And she said, "Mr. Robards, we saw a long day's journey into night, and we wanted to tell you that we think that you're wonderful, and we wanted to say hello." And he says, "Well, did you see it tonight?" And she said, "Yes, we saw it tonight, and we thought you were wonderful. We don't want to interrupt you anymore. We just wanted to say that we think you are fantastic." And I standing kind of behind Kathleen with a plaster smile, I say, "Yes." And he says, "Well, that's very kind. Thank you so much." And she says, "All right, we don't want to bother you anymore, but thank you for being Jason Robards." And he says, "Well, that's very lovely." And so he gave us a great big smile, and Kathleen said, "Bye now," and grabbed me by the elbow and yanked me, and we were gone. And we went back to the table, and Jason Robards gave us a nice smile. And the rest of the thespians were sort of jealous again. And Kathleen said, "You could have come with us. That's all you had to do was come with us. You saw he was perfectly lovely. We didn't annoy anybody, and it all worked out." So we finish our meal. We finish our pizza crust. We finish our French fries. And now we're filing out of the Brown Jug. And we're the last ones. Kathleen and I are the last ones in the group as we walk by our old buddy Jason's table. And Kathleen says, as we pass the table, she says, "Bye now." And Jason looked up, and he saw that it was that pretty young high school girl. And he says, "All right, goodbye." And he waved to us, and he gave us a great big smile. I said, "Yes." And off we went. Yes. And from that day forth, whenever he comes up in conversation, we're like, Jason, our old buddy. Our old buddy Jason. All right, now it's a couple of weeks later, and I have just had the audition for the Fantastics. The new play that's coming up at the Dearborn High Theatrical will be the Fantastics, a lovely musical. It's a musical about a boy and a girl who are in love and they're feuding parents, they're feuding fathers. It's a lovely play, and I'm playing the girl's father. And the girl is played by Kitty Naughton, who I was terribly crushing on last year. Now it's a year later, and we are very close friends. We love each other as friends now. It's just wonderful. It is. It's fantastic. And Sklodge, Bobby Wobby is in the show too. He's cast as Mortimer. So we're all in this together. It's so exciting, and we're rehearsing the Fantastics. Okay, so I didn't tell my parents at first. I wanted it to be a surprise. So I didn't tell my parents until till later on. I wanted to be as I wanted to wait as long as I could before I told them, so it would be a bigger surprise. And I knew that my mother would be thrilled with this news. I knew that she would. I knew that they'd both be my biggest fans. I knew they would. So I wanted to do this. So we're getting closer to opening now, and now it's the end of March, and it's my mother's birthday is in the end of March, and so I said, "Oh, this will be perfect." So I talked to my parents. I said, "Well, I haven't been 100% honest with you about what's going on at the theater." And they're like, "What do you mean? What's going on?" I said, No. I told you I was building the set for the show." And they're like, "Yes." I said, "Well, what I didn't tell you was that I'm in the show. And I think you guys are going to want to come see it because I'm actually in the play." And my mother was over the moon about this. She was so thrilled. She was delighted. She wanted to know everything. She was asking me questions. She was so excited. My dad was excited too. He's a lot calmer, of course, but my mother was highly enthusiastic and very excited. And she wanted to see my script and everything. And that night she called her sister, my beloved Aunt Sandra, out in Woodbury, New Jersey, and said, "Get out here. You've got to see. You got to see our debut." And so Sandra booked a flight, and she was going to come to Dearborn, Michigan, to see me in my theatrical debut. All right, so now it is April 9th, 1976. And it's opening night, and we got a huge contingent of people in the audience. There's a bunch of Lafayette parents who actually came. Yes, Tom and Marilyn DePietro, Joe and Irene Benchick, and Jerry DePietro was there also. He snuck a camera in. Yes, and everybody from high school, my friends are there. Badger, you know, is in the audience, and my mother and father and my beloved Aunt Sandra were all there. So this is opening night. We got a nice crowd, and I am not even scared. I don't even have any stage fright. I was just excited. So opening night of the Fantastic, something extraordinary happened. Yes. The the play begins with an overture, and there's a band, there's a piano played by Mistress Denise, and a harp played by Julia, and a set of drums played by Kip. And they play the overture, and the cast comes out and engages in a bunch of business before we sit down on these benches, which I built. I was in the set crew. I built these benches. And so I'm sitting next to my daughter, Kitty, and we're on one side of the stage, and the boy and the boy's father are on the other side of the stage. And then El Gallo, the character El Gallo, played by Alan Peterson, comes on down, and he sings Try to Remember, the lovely song, Try to Remember. Well, as he was singing that song, everything started to slow down, and it came to a full stop. And I'm sitting there looking around. I'm having this sort of out-of-body experience. And I look around, and everything's frozen. There's Kitty, she's frozen, and there's Ellen, everybody's frozen. And I'm looking around, and I say, "This is peculiar." And then the ceiling, the roof for the auditorium begins to peel back and peel up and lift out of the way. And I could see the night sky. I could see the stars in the sky. I could even see some of the clouds, and I could hear the crickets outside. And it was silent. I'm stuck between the seconds. It's like a Twilight Zone episode, and it's silent. All I can hear is the crickets. And then this huge, benevolent hand comes in from the sky through where the ceiling isn't. This hand comes down, this beautiful feminine hand, and it touches me on the head and says, it's as if the goddess herself said to me, "This is what you're going to do." And I said, "This is what I'm going to do." She says, "You are where you belong, and this is what you're doing from now on." I said, "This is what I'm doing from now on." And the hand gently receded up out of the roof, out of and the ceiling slowly laid back down. And I'm like, whoa, that was real. I said, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I'm going to do. And I was filled with such energy and love. And then Alan Peterson is singing the song. The time goes back to normal. And I'm looking around. I said, this was something. I am going to remember this for the rest of my life. Well, so, yes, now Fantastics is opened and I am an actor. Yes. And this is what I do now. So it's the following summer, and I have an audition, and I get cast in Annie Get Your Gun. I play the funny old guy. I play Mr. Wilson. I play the head of the manager of the hotel. I got a couple of laughs, and I got to sing Doing What Comes Naturally with Miss Annie Get Your Gun herself. Yes. So now it's the following autumn, and I'm back in Dearborn High. I'm a 12th grader. I'm a senior, and we are doing the musical Cabaret. And I play the funny old guy in that one, too. The funny old guy with a tragedy. Yes. So I had to do some real acting as well as the comedic stuff. And I had a couple of songs. I played Herr Schultz, and it was a lovely, lovely experience. And I learned every time I did a show, I was learning and learning more because I'm just an open vessel, ready to go. All right, now it's the following season. Now it is 1977. It is spring 1977, and we are going to do the play Bus Stop, a serious play, a straight play, the first show that I was ever in that wasn't a musical, a straight play by William Inge. And I played the funny old guy once again with a tragedy. So I had to do some real acting in this. Dr. Lyman was an alcoholic, so I actually had a drunk scene. And I wanted this drunk scene to look realistic, not funny. Yeah, I didn't want a funny drunk scene. I wanted a realistic drunk scene. I wanted it to be kind of sad and pathetic. Yeah. So I worked very hard on this. And I was very proud of the work that I eventually wound up doing. Yes. So that was my introduction into doing some serious acting, and I really loved it. Opening weekend, closing night. Opening weekend is closing weekend. You only have one weekend in high school. I know all that work for just 3 short performances. Anyhow, it's closing night. And I say my last lines, and I walk off stage, and I got a round of applause. Oh, it was beautiful. I'll never forget that. I felt like $1 million. It felt like heaven. It did. Now it is. We got a couple more weeks left in senior year in our 1977, and my friend Badger is working over at the shoe store with his buddy Larry the Horse, and Larry the Horse gets it into his head that he wants to buy a pound of marijuana. He wants to buy a pound, and he looks around and he looks around and he finds that he can get a hold of a pound of Acapulco Gold. Dear listeners, Acapulco Gold was the gold standard for marijuana in those days. It was the toppest of the top shelves. And so Larry got a pound of that, and he wanted to cut it up and sell some and keep some for personal use. Absolutely. And so they got this pound of reefer, and they're cutting it up on Cabbage Boy's kitchen table. Cabbage Boy lived in a little apartment, a little upper flat, and Badger lived in the adjacent upper flat. They both lived upstairs in this little house. There was flats up there. They were right next to each other, down the hall from each other. And they're cutting up the marijuana with scissors on this porcelain metal top table in Cabbage Boy's kitchen. And Badger the whole time, it took him a couple of weeks to cut it up and measure it. They probably could have done it in a couple of nights if they haven't been sampling it the whole time. But so Badger the whole time is like, here, you got to try this. And by the way, I am not a fan of this marijuana culture. Not at all. I am not into it. I am not. It doesn't interest me. And this stuff smells like effluence. I don't like it at all. I'm not interested. Not interested. And so Badger's saying, here. And I'm like, no. And we went around and around. He had been smoking dope for years. And every now and then he was like, here. And I'm like, no, I'm not interested. I've got my alcohol. Thank you very much, I would say, not realizing the irony. So it's one night, and Larry the Horse and Cabbage Boy and Badger are all cutting up the marijuana. over there in Cabbage Boy's apartment, and I'm over in Badger's apartment, and I'm watching television. I'm watching All Night at the Movies. Yes, how many of you Detroiters remember about All Night at the Movies? Channel 62. It was some of the crummiest movies that you could possibly find, all public domain, all pieces of junk, but they were movies back to back to back to back to back. So all y'all had to do was turn the sound down and play rock and roll or play Pink Floyd, and the movie was instantly much more enjoyable. Well, Badger comes around, and I'm sitting there watching some lousy movie and listening to Pink Floyd, and Badger comes in the other room, and he says, here. And I'm like, look, how many times do I have to phrase it that I'm not interested? He says, no, I want to talk to you. And I'm like, oh, I don't like the sound of this. He says, listen, I'm your best friend, right? And I go, oh, not this angle. And he says, but I'm your best friend, right? And I'm like, all right. Yeah, okay, yeah, I'll go along with this. Yes, you are. He said, and I wouldn't do anything to hurt you, would I? And I just laughed at that shit. I go, what do you mean? He goes, no, 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 no. I mean, really. I wouldn't really do anything that would really hurt you, would I? And I'm like, oh, I don't like where this is going, but okay, no, you wouldn't. He said, so then just try it. And I'm like, I'm sick of this. If I try this, it smells like effluence. I'm not interested in it. If I try it, will you leave me alone? He says, yes, I will. I'm like, all right, well, okay, I'll try it, but just this once. He says, fine, just this once. He said it without irony. So we smoked a joint together, and I didn't have any rookie coughing spasms. I just coughed a little bit. There's going to be some coughing, but it's fine. So we smoked this joint together, and then we go back down the hall, and Larry the Horse and Cabbage Boy are cutting up the reefer, and we smoke another joint. And at this point, I should be pretty loopy, but I feel a little peculiar, but I don't feel funny at all. Not in the right way, no. And Larry the Horse says, let's go for a cruise. It's something I never understood. Getting in the car when you get fucked up and getting intentionally behind the wheel to go driving around. It didn't make any sense to me, but we did. We got in Larry the Horse's Monte Carlo, black Monte Carlo, and Badger and Larry the Horse are in the front seat, and Cabbage Boy and I are in the back. And just like someone who has smoked a couple of joints for the first time in their life, what did I do? But went promptly to sleep. I'm in the back seat there. And Cabbage Boy is nudging me every now and then. I'm like, whoa, what the fuck is going on? I'd fall asleep again, and he'd jostle me again. What the fuck is going on? Yeah. It didn't seem like I was high. I seemed like I was peeved. I go, oh, this stuff is great. It's a sleeping pill, and it'll take you off. Great. So now it's the next day. Now it's the next night. I'm over at Badger's again, and I say, big deal. Really expensive, really fancy, and really illegal sleeping pills. That's all this is. And he says, no, you don't understand. And I'm like, what? He says, nobody gets high the first time they smoke marijuana. Nobody gets high the first time they do it. I said, then what's the point? He says, no, listen, your body doesn't know what to do, how to process it. So you got to smoke it again, and then your body will understand what's going on now that you've been primed, and then you'll understand what I'm talking about, because you haven't gotten high yet, have you? And I'm like, no, you saw I got sleepy. And he says, exactly. So you smoking marijuana with me again is still part of just this once. And I'm like, oh, you and this logic. Wow. All right, so I didn't get high, and I was sort of annoyed. So sure, I'll try this one more time just to get you to shut up about it. So Larry the Horse and Cabbage Boy aren't there that night. It's just Badger and me. So we smoke a joint together, and he says, let's go for a cruise. And I go, hey, again with this. So we get in the car, and as I'm walking down to the car, I do feel a little bit funny. It's not exactly the same as it was last night. I don't feel grouchy. I do feel a little bit funny. So we're driving around, and by the time we get out on the road, everything seems funny. It is, and I'm laughing at stuff, and yield sign. And we go on Outer Drive, and the sign says Outer Doctor, and we're like, Outer Doctor. And then we're driving down Outer Drive, and there's a garbage bag somebody littered and spilled a garbage bag. It's half spilled out on the road. And Badger says, a garbage bag, a dead garbage bag. Oh no, did somebody tell its parents? And you had to be there, but that rather fractured us. And we thought it was hilarious. So we spent the rest of the night laughing. I could, for the first time, see the appeal. Yes. So I could say something like the rest thing, the rest is history. But no. All right. So next thing happens is we graduate high school. And I'll tell you what happened after we were unleashed onto the world next time. Yes.